You've been underestimated before, dismissed, ignored, maybe even laughed at. That sting, it lingers. Not because you're weak, but because deep down, you know you were meant for more. You remember the moments, the time your silence was mistaken for fear, the time your kindness was treated like weakness, the time you wanted to speak, but your voice felt trapped under the weight of doubt. And the world doesn't make it easier. It's built to reward the average, to celebrate the obedient, to keep you small. You felt it, that pressure to shrink yourself, to hide your edge, to fit the mold. But what if those very wounds, those insults, those rejections, were never meant to bury you, but to build you? Because there is another path. A path where suffering becomes fuel, where betrayal becomes armor, where every insult you've taken is laid, brick by brick, into the wall of a fortress no one can breach. Picture this. You walk into a room, and you don't need to raise your voice. You don't need to prove anything. People feel it, the weight of someone they cannot bend. That's what it means to terrify without cruelty. It isn't about being dangerous to others. It's about becoming untouchable yourself. And this is where Nietzsche steps in. He believed your suffering isn't a curse. It's the raw material for greatness. Every insult, every rejection, every betrayal. He saw all of it as fuel. His warning was simple. Most people waste their pain. They bury it. They drown in it. But the few who know how to shape it, those are the ones who build a mind so strong, it unsettles everyone around them. Most people will never choose this. They'll cling to comfort. They'll keep chasing approval. They'll keep breaking again and again, every time life hits harder. But you don't have to. You can forge a mind that no betrayal can shatter. A will so steady that criticism turns to dust before it reaches you. And when that happens, something shifts. The same people who once underestimated you, they can't laugh anymore. They can't dismiss you because they can't control you. This isn't for everyone. It's for the rare few willing to transform pain into steel. And if you're still here, then maybe you're not like most people. Because the fire you fear, that's where your steel is made. But here's the secret they never told you. The world doesn't actually reward strength. It rewards performance. The louder you shout, the more people assume you're confident. The more you post, the more they assume you're winning. Yet you've seen it. The ones with the biggest masks are often the first to crumble when life turns brutal. Society has sold you a cheap trick, that appearances are power, that if you act unshaken, you'll be respected. But you already know how fragile that illusion is. The coworker who boasts about control but panics under pressure. The friend who talks about loyalty but disappears when things get hard. The influencer who preaches positivity but can't even sleep without pills. The truth is quieter, harder, more dangerous. Real strength doesn't demand attention. It doesn't need to parade itself. Real strength is the person who suffers and doesn't break. The one who takes rejection, betrayal, heartbreak, and doesn't collapse. The one who absorbs the blow and stands taller because of it. Think back on your own scars. The times you were abandoned, doubted, left alone with your pain. At the time, it felt like death. Yet each time, you survived. Each time, you rose. That's not weakness. That's proof you already carry the steel society pretends to celebrate. Nietzsche saw through the lie of the mask. He knew the strongest minds aren't the loudest, but the most resilient. Not the ones who chase applause, but the ones who can walk through fire and keep walking. Happiness, he said, isn't the test of a life well lived. Endurance is. To endure and to turn suffering into fuel, that is the hidden power. Imagine yourself now, not needing to announce your strength, not needing to prove it. People feel it anyway. The calm in your silence unsettles them more than shouting ever could. That's why true resilience terrifies. It can't be bought, borrowed, or faked. And this flips everything you've been taught. Because strength was never about noise. It was never about masks. It was always about the fire you feared. The fire that could break you if you let it, or forge you if you dare to step into it. And this is where Nietzsche enters. Not as a distant figure in old books, not as a name you were forced to memorize in school, but as a voice, harsh, yes, but also strangely honest. A voice that refuses to flatter you, yet refuses to lie to you. He knew what most people can't admit, that life is not kind, not fair, not gentle. That to exist is to suffer. To breathe is to endure pain, rejection, failure. But instead of despairing in it, he saw it as the birthplace of strength. He wrote not for the comfortable, but for the ones like you, the ones who've already bled, already fallen, already been betrayed. Nietzsche would look at your scars and say, "This is your foundation." He would tell you, the world isn't against you because you're weak. It presses against you because resistance is what shapes you. Steel is useless until it's tested by fire. So are you. And yes, his truths are dark. He said happiness was not the goal. He said comfort was a kind of death. He said those who cling to safety will never truly live. At first it sounds cruel. It sounds unbearable. But listen closer. It isn't cruelty. It's liberation. Because when you stop demanding that life be easy, every hardship stops feeling like a betrayal. You stop asking, "Why me?" and begin asking, "What strength is this building in me?" And suddenly, suffering isn't an enemy. It's a teacher. Every insult, every failure, every heartbreak, it isn't proof of weakness. It's proof of transformation. This is why Nietzsche's voice carries weight. He doesn't hand you shallow comfort. He hands you a weapon. Not a sword for others, but a discipline for yourself. A way to turn bitterness into resilience, loss into clarity, wounds into armor. Think of what that means for you. Every time someone doubted you, dismissed you, treated you as small, that was raw material. Every betrayal was another brick. Every rejection was another stone. And when you stack them all together, what you build is a fortress. A mind so steady, so unshakable, it unsettles anyone who tries to break it. Nietzsche doesn't ask you to run from pain. He dares you to walk straight into it. Because he knew, a mind that embraces suffering doesn't collapse under pressure. It becomes the pressure. And that kind of mind, it terrifies. So here you stand, no longer fooled by masks or noise. You've heard the hidden truth. You've met the guide who refuses to lie to you. The question now is, will you carry his challenge forward, or return to the comfort that keeps everyone else fragile? To answer that, you have to go deeper. Because the real battle isn't outside, it's inside. Not against enemies, but against patterns that have been running your life in silence. Start with the ego, that restless voice inside you, always begging for recognition. It whispers, prove yourself, show them, make them see, and every time you listen, you become their prisoner. Because the ego isn't strength, it's dependence. It survives only on applause. The moment silence comes, it starves. Then there is the shadow. The parts of you you've buried. The anger, the envy, the desires you pretend don't exist. You hide them because you're afraid they'll make you unworthy. But Nietzsche would say, denying them only makes them stronger. What you refuse to face doesn't disappear. It controls you from below. Until you meet your shadow, you'll always be a stranger to yourself. And then, the fear of rejection. How many times have you silenced yourself just to be accepted? How many times have you swallowed truth because you feared being left alone? That fear is the chain society clamps around your neck. But Nietzsche reminds you, rejection isn't death, it's liberation. Every time someone walks away, you're freer to walk your own path. Resentment, another poison. You know its taste, the quiet replay of every insult, every unfair moment, every betrayal. You carry it like armor, but it's really rust eating through your spirit. Nietzsche called this resentment, a disease of the soul that traps you in the past, feeding off bitterness. And the cure? Not revenge, but creation. To rise so high that the old wound becomes irrelevant. To stop asking for repayment and start building something greater from the ashes. And then there's burnout. That exhaustion you feel when every day is spent chasing approval, fighting battles that don't matter, giving pieces of yourself to everyone but you. Nietzsche knew this too. He saw how people collapse not from pain itself, but from living a life that isn't their own. The soul can endure suffering, he said, but it cannot endure emptiness. Look at these patterns: ego, shadow, fear, resentment, burnout. Do you see how they've shaped you? How they've kept you small, dependent, fragile? The world wants you trapped in them, because a person at war with themselves is easy to control. But Nietzsche's wisdom is this: you are not doomed to stay there. Your ego can be mastered. Your shadow can be faced. Your fear can be broken. Your resentment can be burned away. And when that happens, you stop living like a prisoner of your mind, and you start living as its master. That's why his truths weren't meant to crush you. They were meant to awaken you. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. Awareness is the turning point. The moment the change you thought were permanent reveal themselves as illusions. Because suffering was never just punishment. It was preparation. Think back. Every heartbreak, every rejection, every night you thought you wouldn't survive, you did. You walked through fire and came out alive. That's endurance. That's victory, whether you recognized it or not. And when you recognize it now, something shifts. Pain stops being a curse. It becomes proof. It's like standing in front of a mirror you've avoided for years, only to finally see yourself clearly. Not broken, but weathered, sharpened, tested. The scars aren't shame. They're symbols, markers of everything you've survived. And when you see them this way, they stop being reminders of weakness. They become the evidence of strength. Awareness reframes everything. That betrayal wasn't the end of you. It was the forge that hardened you. That loneliness wasn't emptiness. It was the silence where you met yourself. That failure wasn't proof you couldn't succeed. It was training for a future where you will. This is why endurance terrifies people. Because once you realize pain is your teacher, nothing can be used against you anymore. The insults don't land. The rejections don't wound. The storms don't shake you. You stand there, calm, steady, unshakable. And everyone feels it, even if they can't explain why. Most will never reach this clarity. They'll keep running from their suffering, pretending it doesn't exist. But you you now see what it really was. Training, preparation, a test you've already been passing. Imagine yourself carrying this awareness into every moment. Instead of shrinking when life hits, you rise taller. Instead of asking, "Why me?" you ask, "What strength is this building in me?" Every obstacle becomes another stone. Every insult, another layer of armor. Every struggle, another lesson written into your bones. And suddenly, life stops feeling like an endless war. It feels like transformation, like becoming. And that is the clarity Nietzsche wanted you to find. Because now you see it. Your scars are not proof of weakness. They are the forge of your terrifying strength. The pain you thought disqualified you, that was your initiation. The suffering you wished away, that was the teacher shaping you into something unshakable. You've carried this strength longer than you realized. Every time you broke, but stood back up. Every time you were rejected, but kept moving. Every time you thought you had nothing left, but still endured. That was proof. Not of fragility, but of resilience. Most people will never recognize this in themselves. They'll keep covering their wounds, pretending they don't exist, hiding behind masks. But you now know the truth. Your scars are your crown. Your endurance is your weapon. Your mind, once underestimated, is already becoming the fortress others can't shake. So pause here. Look back on everything you've carried. The betrayals, the heartbreaks, the silent nights no one else saw. Do you see it differently now? Do you see how each one was not the end, but the beginning of your strength? This is your invitation. Not to chase power, not to prove yourself to anyone, but to live as someone who cannot be broken. Because when you walk through life this way, people will feel it. They will sense the weight of your calm, the depth of your silence, the steadiness of your presence. And that is terrifying. Not because you harm, but because you cannot be harmed. Carry this truth forward. Let your scars speak for you. And let the world see, at last, the strength it could never destroy.